This is Conservative to America. I'm your host, Cole Holcomb, bringing you news commentary from the best perspective, the conservative perspective. Over the weekend, the United States launched Operation Epic Fury in Iran. The president has said this operation should be expected to last 4 to 5 weeks. This comes in response to months, really actually years of unsuccessful talks to keep Iran from building a nuclear weapon. Of course, there was Operation Midnight Hammer back in June to destroy Iran's capability of building one. It was successful. But then Iran decided, you know what, let's build it again. They did not get the warning, and they did not get really the point of America's power. Well, they brought this attack on. We gave them a warning by destroying their facilities. There's those who I've heard from the liberal perspective, if they said, well, maybe there shouldn't have been a war, but to stop them from getting a nuclear weapon, maybe we should just drop a bomb on them again, on their nuclear facilities. Well, we tried that. That didn't work. They rebuilt it once. They would rebuild it again. So it was crucial that they launch military action to stop Iran from building a nuclear weapon. Also, these attacks are hopefully leading to the overthrow of the evil Iranian regime that would be required in order to keep them from continuing to try to build a nuclear weapon. President Trump has announced to the Iranian people that the hour of their freedom is at hand, and that when the operation is over, they should take their government back from the evil regime, and that it is theirs to take. So far, the United States has taken out at least 49 Iranian leaders, including Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who has served as the Ayatollah, I believe, since 1989. He was 86 years old. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was one of the worst and most evil men in the world. I've seen people who they write things about him, liberal papers and liberals on Instagram and other areas, or YouTube, or Snapchat or TikTok, wherever you watch social media, you'll see it somewhere. But they try to act like Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, like we went and America doesn't have the right to overthrow him. And that we shouldn't have overthrown him, that we were impeding on Iran's rights. So guess what? The Ayatollah took away all the Iranian people's rights. He was a dictator. He was an evil man, an extremely evil man. You could compare him to men like Adolf Hitler. He was that bad. And that's not me trying to go out and be all crazy about it. No, it's serious. He was a terrible person. Now, Ali Khamenei, I hear people and they're talking about this story. There was a story that came out whenever they dropped him. Sad thing happened. It was meant to be launched on Americans were intentionally launching these bombs at Iranian leaders and at military facilities. Well, a bomb accidentally hit an elementary school in Iran, very sadly, and it killed, I believe it was 86 school children whenever it happened. And that is extremely, extremely sad that happened. But that does not mean that we should stop our strikes there, and then everybody acts like we were the ones that brought evil up on Iran. One bad thing happens, and I see this all over all these, not taking away that was bad, and I'm not going to say that the United States should they should be sad that it happened, but we shouldn't apologize necessarily for it, in the sense of that we were intentionally trying to do something. We were not intentionally trying to kill young school children. But guess what? He intentionally has tried to kill Christians. He intentionally has tried to kill Jews. He intentionally has launched missiles at Israeli facilities where civilians live. He intentionally has launched things at the United Arab Emirates. That was afterwards. That wasn't him. But Iranian military officials have. But he intentionally, before, has launched things at civilians. And guess what? Just in the past few months, he has killed 30,000 protesters in Iran just for protesting the regime. 30,000 protesters. Where were all these liberals Instagram stories about the 30,000 people being killed, calling for the United States to take action? No. It's whenever we come in and we decide, you know what, we need to take out Ali Khamenei, we need to take out the Ayatollah because he's doing that stuff, and then a stray A bomb goes off and it accidentally hits an elementary school, and then that's what they decide to post. Yes, that's sad that that happened, but don't forget what the Ayatollah did. Don't act like just because that happens, that means the Ayatollah shouldn't have been taken down. Don't act just because that's what happened, just because that is what that happened. Don't act like this regime should not be taken down. It is insane. Defense Minister Aziz Nasirzadeh, he was also taken down. Forgive me for the pronunciation of these names. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. But you know what? These guys, they don't deserve to have their names pronounced right, okay? They don't deserve to have their names even said or remembered by history. But guess what? They're going to go down in history as a bunch of evil, terrible, crooked, wicked, nasty people. And another person that was killed was IRGC Commander Mohammed Pakpour. The death of these evil men is long overdue. I rejoice that they have been eliminated, as should every freedom-loving American and every freedom-loving person in this country. In the world, too. Not just in this country, but in the world. Also, every Christian should rejoice. Every Christian should rejoice that the Ayatollah is dead, that these evil, wicked men have died. I've heard people say Christians shouldn't rejoice over people dying, and I heard this guy say it the best way. Yes, we should rejoice over a man like that dying. Not because another soul is going to hell, but guess what? This guy was terrible and he killed Christians, and guess what? That's actually a Christian stance. We're going to rejoice whenever the Antichrist dies, so we should rejoice whenever the Ayatollah dies, because he was an Antichrist. He was an Antichrist. I rejoice that he is dead. I rejoice that he was killed. As should every Christian. Not just American, not just every person who loves freedom in the world, but every Christian should rejoice. You know why we should rejoice? For the church. For the church. Why? Because whenever this regime falls, 90 million people, 90 million Iranians will no longer be in a living hell. That is what the Ayatollah created for them. Over 90 million people, a living hell. That's what the Ayatollah created for them, a living hell. And guess what? For the Christians in Iran, they will no longer be facing persecution once this regime is taken down. They won't have to worry. And that is wonderful. I saw a video of an Iranian church singing Waymaker, Miracle Worker, Promise Keeper, Light in the Dark. They're singing the song Waymaker. That makes my soul rejoice. And I rejoice the Ayatollah has been brought down. And I will rejoice whenever this regime is brought down, as should every Christian in America. Also, every Christian in America should also be urgently praying that a great revival will take place in Iran, that this regime will fall, and then whenever this regime falls, that a great revival will take place in Iran, and that Christianity will spread all across that country. That's what we should pray as Christians. But we should also rejoice and praise God that the Ayatollah and these evil, wicked men have been brought down. Also, in these attacks, the United States has destroyed 10 Iranian naval ships, according to the president, along with the Iranian naval headquarters. That is absolutely wonderful news. However, there's sad news in all of this. Sadly, 6 United States service members so far have been killed in action, fighting to protect American freedom and fighting to give Iranians freedom and fighting to keep Iran from possessing nuclear weapons. It's yet another reminder that freedom is never free. My heart goes out to their friends, their family, and their loved ones. But as the president said, this is what happens in war. This is what happens in war. It's sad, but this is what happens in war. And sadly, there's likely to be more people that will die. These likely will not be the last people to die, and that's sad. I hope that that's not the case, but it likely is the case that more people will die. I hope that's not the case that more people will die, but it likely is. But may God bless our military as they continue to bring an end to the world sponsor of terrorism, Iran. The Iranian regime was an evil regime, as I have already said. They were terrible. They were wicked. And I rejoice that they have been brought down. But in all of this, it comes to the legal question. Does Trump technically have the right to wage war on other countries? That's something Thomas Massey, Tucker Carlson, all these people, they're getting mad about this war. Tucker Carlson, because he's a puppet for Iran, okay? Tucker Carlson, don't trust Tucker. Tucker is evil, okay? Tucker, Candace Owens, these people used to be memorized as these wonderful people for the Republican Party. These people are terrible, crooked human beings. But I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. But there's so many Republicans and Democrats who say that Trump did not have the right to wage the war according to the Constitution. Well, let's go over this. Let's go through the War Powers Act. What the president, what Congress, how to wage wars. This is what the War Powers Act of 1973 says. The War Powers Act of 1973 was enacted to limit the United States president's ability to engage military forces without congressional approval, aiming to ensure that both Congress and the president share the decision-making power regarding military actions. In overview, the War Powers Resolution, commonly referred to as the War Powers Act, was passed by the U.S. Congress on November 7, 1973, overriding President Richard Nixon's veto. The act was a response to the Vietnam War and aimed to prevent future conflicts without congressional consent. It requires the president to consult with Congress before introducing U.S. armed forces into hostilities, and mandates that the president must notify Congress within 48 hours of such actions. Now, there's some key provisions, 4 key provisions that you must know. There is a consultation requirement. The president must consult with Congress before deploying armed forces into hostilities or situations where imminent involvement in hostilities is clear. President Trump did consult Congress. He had Marco Rubio brief the Gang of Eight, which is the group of leaders in the United States House and in the U.S. Senate. You might ask, well, why did he not brief all 535 members of Congress? Don't they have the right to it? No. Okay, that is not actually granted in that. Not the entirety of the Congress does not have to be briefed. And the answer to that is because they realized whenever they wrote up the War Powers Act, which you can't trust everybody in Congress. It's been proven time and time again. There have been people who've been married who have dated spies, slept with spies, had spies in their house. Or maybe they're serving in Congress and they don't love this country really that much. So he did not have to inform all 535 members of Congress. And the reason to that question is national security. You cannot trust every member. Heck, I wouldn't even trust some Republican members with knowing certain information about war, because they would go run their mouth on Newsmax or Fox News or Instagram or YouTube or wherever they let their rants go out. But especially Democrats, too, with people like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. You cannot trust every member in Congress. You cannot trust them. Now, there's a second provision, the notification provision. The president is required to notify Congress within 48 hours of committing armed forces to military action. Did he do this? Yes. Okay, so he did the consultation requirement, and he did the notification, yes. Time limit. Armed forces cannot remain engaged in hostilities for more than 60 days without congressional authorization or declaration of war. This is followed by a 30-day withdrawal period. So you have 90 days to do your stuff. How many days has it been? Okay, the 28th, the 1st, and now it's the 2nd. So we're on day 3 of this military action. So with that being said, the president acted legally with the time limit, 60 days. So he is allowed to do whatever he can do, what he believes is necessary for 60 days or until Congress votes on it. Then there is number 4, known as the presidential authority. The act does not restrict the president's powers as commander-in-chief to respond to attacks or imminent threats against the United States. So things like nuclear weapons, but also you can make the argument that Iran possessing a nuclear weapon is an imminent threat. I would make the argument that that is likely I would make the argument that that is an imminent threat, but I'm not necessarily sure that that would stand up. But in closing, I urge everyone to pray for our leaders and service members, that God would give them wisdom, safety, strength, and that the Lord our God would march into the midst of the battle with them. The question becomes, will the Iranian regime finally fall after 46 years of control? Will America continue to be successful in their attacks on Iran? Will this bring peace to the Middle East? Well, only time will tell and answer those questions, but I will continue to bring you news commentary from the best perspective, the conservative perspective. I am your host, Cole Holcomb, and this is Conservative to America.